afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this. Welcome to the round 19 review after the Blues beat the Roos for the second time in season 2024. The 4:40 p.m. graveyard shift on a Sunday. It was 16 goals, 11, 107 to 14 goals, 4, 88. The job got done. I'm so relieved that it's done. I had this just unease about me throughout the week. Got a lot more comfortable as we drew closer to the first bounce. And the reason for that was because I felt like it was just one of those games where no matter what situation you found yourself in, it was just not going to be good enough. You know, you win by 10 plus goals. And this is just from external, I guess. You know, you win by 10 plus goals. It's only North Melbourne. You win by less than 10 goals. It should have been more. You lose and it's down at Icon Park, you know, pitchforks, eyeballing the players, trying to figure out what's going on. It was just, it felt like one of those weeks. And I suppose because of that, that shows where we're at now. We'll get on the game shortly. You know, I could summarize it all pretty quickly and say overall it was just a box ticking exercise. It felt like that for me. Obviously not so much for the, you know, for the players and everyone on the inside, but it just felt like, you know, get the win, get out of there. You know, after this review, I don't know how many times we're going to be talking about this game, but it is important to stay present because before you know it, the cycle of footy happens and you're losing games again. I felt early in the piece, I was sitting level 2 sort of forward pocket, right where North Melbourne came out, and they had this sign on their banner, which initially when I saw it, I thought, gee, that's interesting. Like they're really believing that they've come a long way. I thought my initial reaction was, oh, hang on a minute, how far have they really come? The work's not done just yet. They've still got a long way to go. But I guess as the game played out, it rang true. And I always find the banner is a little bit of an indication of the mentality of the club, potentially, maybe just a little bit. I'm also potentially reading way too much into things. But no, I thought it was an interesting touch. Let's be honest, the first half was a bit of a frustrating watch. There are a few elements to this game. There was the return of the one ruck system. We had Tom DeConing coming up against Tristan Sherry, which was an important matchup. Both of them in the same draft. Tom picked 30, Tristan picked 72. So that was an interesting matchup. Our boys just seemed to get banged up this game, particularly in the first half. Tom goes off. I don't exactly know what it was to this moment. You know, a foot, a leg, something. He goes off early and, you know, the game was pretty much a back and forth, bit of an arm wrestle. I thought North were pretty good. And there was a moment when Tom goes off in the first half and I'm thinking, oh shit, like, okay, this is a bit of a reality check. Like what happens, touch wood, and you never plan for injuries to happen, but what does happen in game if Tom gets hurt and can't fulfill his duties in the ruck? Because at that stage he goes off, I think it was just before quarter time. So he goes off and I'm thinking, oh shit, like what? So is this a Harry in the ruck for the rest of the game against Tristan Sherry? Is this a Cripps? Is it a Sam Durden? So that's something that definitely hits you square between the eyes and the reality of, okay, this is why we have backups. And this is why we have contingencies, not only on the list, but, you know, on game day as well. So whatever that means, I'm sure that'll be a talking point or a small talking point of the week. The midfield mix was also interesting. Saw Chera moved to halfback to start the game. We saw a little bit more of Jack Carroll coming into the side. 15 centre bounce attendances, I believe it was. So a little bit more midfield time for Jack. A bit more of a smaller team, if you will, as opposed to a top-heavy team. The first half, it was just frustrating. I think the defensive application around the ground, just not to the level that it has to be at, and not to the level that it has been at for the majority of the year. And that was frustrating. Halftime was amazing. Oh, amazing. We unite when things are going well, but, we also do unite when things are not going well, because we're the crowd, we're the fans. We're feeling frustrated. We want more. The first half was not to the level. It wasn't good enough. That's not the level that we want to be at consistently. That's just not good. That's not going to cut it. And so there was I felt a uniting with some of the people I was talking to at halftime, just to vent out that frustration. I mean, it was pretty evident. We saw the pressure rating dip, holes in the midfield, holes in the corridor. North were able to, apply pressure, force turnover. I felt that between the arcs, between the sticks, so before any shots on goal were had, it was a bit scrappy, fumbles and missed kicks and missed handballs. But for whatever reason, once it got to shots on goal, it became a much more accurate affair. So that's halftime. I don't know, call it arrogance. I just have this different belief with the team at the moment. It's like, they're going to turn it on. We've got this ability now. I think 2024 will go down in the history books as sort of one of the first years where we really start tapping into that ability to manage the game and sort of manage when to go. And, we used to be a very erratic, highly emotional team, just go for it from the first bounce, run out of steam, etc. Not dissimilar to what we see from a team like North Melbourne. And so second quarter was disappointing, but as bad as it was, I thought the third quarter really lifted, that intensity lifted, defensive pressure lifted. And that's the Carlton that's who we want to be. That's ultimately what's going to be the difference between whether or not we do anything of note this year and whether we're able to achieve the ultimate success. So that lifts in the third quarter, game turns on its head. Charlie Curnow, finds a way to get himself into the game, take over, bit of individual brilliance, but also built off the back of turnover. We see Jesse Motlop have some really crucial moments. We see Fogarty bob up. We see Owies. In fact, the three of those that I just mentioned, that was a really strong performance. All three hit the scoreboard in a number of different ways. But yeah, the Charlie Curnow bit was, I thought, interesting. For all that, I don't understand why we are demanding this perfection and why we've forgotten that we didn't have him for 2 years. And the fact that he's played every single game since returning after being out for as long as he was. And for some reason, whether it's the external pressure, whether it's what the media are feeding us, but there's been this really weird expectation of perfection. He was inaccurate last week, kicked 3 goals, 7. And I noticed, and I noted it in the fan cams last night, kicks his third and might have been his fourth. And the way he turned to the crowd and just sort of like lifted his hands up, it reminded me of Gladiator. I've been referencing Gladiator a lot lately, but it reminded me of Gladiator and, are you not entertained? Like, are you happy now? Is it okay now? Can you get off my back now? I don't know if it was to our fans or just generally, the external. And I think what needs to be remembered with Charlie and probably why and a little bit of why the frustrations crept in is because he is a game changer. When Charlie gets going, it sparks. He's like a key. Charlie gets going, it's like a key to the energy of the group. He's magic. Jesse Motlop's got it, but I think Charlie really leads that. It's an intangible energy is the best way I can describe it. So when he gets going, he can turn games on their head. He can get inside his opponent's mind. And, if you're at the game and you're watching Charlie off the ball, and that was something I was really mindful of this week, he gets held 70 meters off the ball a lot. And it's frustrating. There's this uneducated, jealous narrative that's been built around him by a lot of opposition supporters and a lot of, I think the media do it as well. And that's the free kick merchant narrative. It's fucking rubbish. It's not true. And for whatever reason, I hope it hasn't seeped into the umpiring, and I hope that that's not going to be a feature of what we see moving forward. Is he just a victim of his own greatness? He's come back from 2 and a bit years off. He's won 2 Colemans in a row. He's kicked 4 goals, and there's just this weird vibe around him. Leads the Coleman, but he doesn't tackle enough. But you look over the other end. I mean, he's had going into the game 4 less tackles than Nick Larkey going into the game. So a lot of what I see, a lot of the rhetoric that we see, it's just feeling and emotion. It's not grounded in evidence. It's just, to be honest, just rubbish, just verbal diarrhea. It's I think, I feel, and I say, rather than, okay, what's the evidence to back it up? So I don't know, I thought that was a really telling moment, but nonetheless, we turned it around in the third, a lot more comfortable in the third. I wasn't smiling much until we hit the lead in the third quarter again. And then, I always felt that we were the better team. I always felt that we were winning the game, even when, we were down at halftime. And the game plays out. I was kind of hoping that we'd run away with it a little bit, but, to the Roos' credit, and for whatever reason, because they're 17th on the ladder, the credit doesn't want to be given to them. I think that's disappointing. I think they deserve a lot of credit for the way that they played. They were battered last week. They went away. They got belted by Sydney at the SCG, which a lot of teams have, including us. And so, credit to them for responding. But for last week, they've been in pretty good form, defensively in particular. So I think when Sheasel kicks his goal in the 4th and it cuts it to 7, that was the one moment where I thought, hang on, we're not losing this, are we? No, we're still going to be winning this game, right? So there was a little moment there, but ultimately we did enough to get the job done. We come out of the game pretty battered, pretty bruised. So you've got Akers, who was subbed off. I believe it was just because he was a bit sore and precautionary. You've got De Koning, who just all day was bruised, battered, sore. You got Harry Mackay, really interesting moment there. It happened at the end of the ground that I was sitting. I thought, the way I saw it, I didn't see a head knock. I just thought he copped the back of someone's skull to his nose, and it kind of dazed him a little bit. I saw the commentary, and this is a fortunate or unfortunate part of the landscape. The commentators will just call it as they see it. The commentators will say, oh, he's definitely out cold or whatever it is. And that sways perception. It's about the look of the game. So Harry gets knocked. He's a little bit dazed. There's an assumption that he might be concussed. Nonetheless, we need to get a doctor out there. Evidently, the doctors are downstairs looking at Blake Acres. So there's a bit of a mix up there. But eventually we get to him. He goes off, does the scat test, 3/4 time, comes back on in the 4th, thankfully. And that is the moment as well. I said it a few weeks ago. So we've had a bit of a repeat of a few instances. So we have the Boyd suspension, which in our case goes in our way, overturned. We have the Kennedy knee injury, which happened last year as well, but it ends up being okay. And I remember saying Harry was the other one. We go into, I think it might have been round 18 last year. He did his knee against Port Adelaide, and we missed a chunk of footy and then came back and whatnot. So Harry goes off, and I thought, here we go. There it is again. There's the repeat. But it ends up eventuating in our favour. So that was an interesting little touch there, and that's that. Honestly, end the game, get some reps into some guys into the side, try something new, see some fresh faces, and away we go. Conclusion of round 18, we're sitting 12-6. It's a strong position to be sitting in. Are we playing at our best? No, we're not. Why? That's a great question. I asked quite a few times last night on the fan cams, what's the balance between our mentality and, the focus to lock in defensively for long enough, and structurally, is there something that opposition sides have figured out about us? I don't know what that balance is. I think there's a little bit of both. I think ultimately the season is long. Like, it's short because it flies by, but really it's long. And we're in this part of the year where you just kind of got to get through. That's how I sense it. That's how I feel it. We had an incredible 5-game patch where I think that's the best that we've looked over an extended period of time this season. We then fall into this 2-game stretch where defensively we start leaking again. And that's been the theme of the last 3 weeks. More than anything, I have faith that we've got enough scoring power, and not just scoring power, but offensive power with ball in hand and talent to get us through. Defensively is where I'm a little bit concerned because we're leaking a lot. We're leaking a lot more than what I think we should. Granted, North Melbourne were pretty accurate, 14 goals for. It had Adelaide written all over it. Do you remember? 16-4. But so that is an area where I'm a bit concerned, but not to the point where I don't think it's going to get better. Why do I say that? Well, they've proven it over the course of the season. So you've got to win when you're playing well, because sometimes you can play well and you lose. You've got to win when you're not playing at your best. Ultimately, what is all of this? This is all a week-to-week proposition to qualify for finals, and then final starts, and then it's a whole new ball game. And then you talk about percentage, and it's got to be this, and you've got to be beating this team by this much, and if we're legit, we do this. Like, it all goes out the window. So right now we're in a qualifying round robin until September, and then it starts again. So that's why I'm not too concerned. I think we're sitting pretty. I think we have the healthiest version of this list. Touch wood. Always got to be careful. That I think we've ever had. I believe that. There's still 5 games to go. But right now, at the conclusion of round 19, and that's the one thing that I remember begging for in the mid-season review, can we just get a good run at health? And that is now presenting us with a new challenge. Because previously it's been who's available, you're playing. We've got injuries, so it's out of necessity. We are finally, if you strip away the anger in the first half and the focus in the second quarter, and I know that we tend to focus on what's going wrong as opposed to what's going right, and it is what it is. That's how humans are wired. Sorry, that's how Carlton supporters, a lot of us, are wired, because we've been hurt for a long time, and we want it so badly. All good. But if you strip that back for a minute, and you just zoom out and you look at what is the situation, the challenge is knowing what the right mix is when you've got a healthy list. We haven't been able to know it. We haven't been able to really tinker with it. And I think that's where we find ourselves now more than ever. So I think that's a good thing. Trying Chera on the halfback line, whatever, it's interesting. I don't know if that's a permanent solution. I don't know if that's just something we want to look at because we might need it in finals. I thought he did settle eventually, and his ball use out of the back half was definitely needed. Maybe that's a reminder why Jordan Boyd needs to be in the side. So there's that, but the mix is crucial, and getting it right is crucial. So you've got names like McGovern, Kemp, Boyd, Zach Williams, Jack Martin, who, if you had to set all those names at the start of the year, you're thinking, yeah, they're definitely in the best version of this side, but who knows? Jesse Motlop comes back into the side, first game of the season. Fogarty looks like he's really locked himself in the team. Young Lockie Cowan just continues to lock himself in this side and prove his worth. Chincotta as well, just keeps at it. So there is a headache at selection that I'm so happy I don't need to deal with. It's good to talk about. It's a good talking point, and that's the beauty of us fans. We get to sit on this side and just talk about it, what we think is the right mix. And I think the reality is you're never going to get it right, because whenever you win, we're very much focused on wins and losses. So you win, and this is it. This is it. This is the way it works. It's 2 rucks. It's 1 ruck in a win. Don't tell me anything else. We lose. Oh, where's Pito? We needed it. What happens if Tom gets in? Like, it's it's a never-ending conversation, which is always dictated by the win or the loss, as opposed to the process and the method. So overall, I think that's a good thing for us. And that's that. Like, honestly, we'll move on. I'm so relieved that it's done. I'm not going to lie. It was just a really weirdly uncomfortable situation to be in, because I knew we were better. I knew we were going to win. But you still got to go and do it. And you still got to go and enjoy it. So got to be really careful not to look too far ahead. And I was able to put things into perspective. I think talking to Marnie Cohen during the week really helped with that perspective around, she's a North Melbourne supporter, and the way she was talking about, like, why aren't you enjoying this? Like, you wanted this for so many years. You wanted to be able to win, and now you're in a position where teams just can't beat you. Teams like North Melbourne can try their hardest, and they just can't beat you because you're that good. So it was good to hear an outsider's perspective, and it is important to enjoy it. So that's that. Now we can move on, never talk about it again, and away we go. I thought my player of the game... I thought Charlie won us the game, but I thought George Hewitt was the player of the game, if that makes sense. I really loved his inclusion back into the side. I thought it was really important what he did around stoppage, particularly when things weren't going our way. So I'll have to think about it a little bit more, but that's where my head's at. And doing a bit, I didn't mind Ollie Holland's game. I liked what he did. Adam Saad, I thought he was instrumental. He's the only player in our side who can run and carry like that. We don't have a lot of that in this team. And, some of the teams at the very top, I think of the Swans, they've got that line-breaking pace. The Swans have it in a couple of players, namely, Blakey, Chad Warner. Saad's the only one that can do that, who can really just take the game on, split it open through the corridor with his run and carry. And I think I want to see a lot more of that, because what it also does is it brings the crowd into it. Adam Saad's got magic about him too. We talk about who's got it. Adam Saad's got the aura, he's got the magic. So I would like to see us utilize that a bit more. I'm a big fan of that. He uses the ball well. He's smart. He's got a high footy IQ. So yeah, those are my thoughts. What about you? How did you experience round 19? What was your feeling in the lead up compared to the game? Are you still focusing on the first half, or are you able to just move past it? Share with us in the comments below your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and we'll go from there. See you in round 20. Go Blues. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. On your way out, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and also go and check out the BA shop. We've got hoodies, t-shirts, AirPods case covers, key rings, water bottles, and of course, the BA pin. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks again for your support. It really does mean the world. And of course, go Blues.